Before I could even enjoy being home, my Yandere childhood friend had me kidnapped. The moment they ripped the hood off my head, I completely lost it. Put the hood back on, take me back, anywhere but here. Because standing right in front of me was the biggest nightmare of my entire life. My Yandere childhood friend slowly walked toward me without saying a word. She bent down and grabbed my chin like I was prey that had finally been caught. So, you really ran away for 7 years. This time, you're staying with me forever. To understand why I was terrified, you need to know one thing about my life. I had one childhood friend. She was unbelievably beautiful. She was brilliant at everything she did, the kind of perfect kid every parent compared you to. If she hadn't been completely obsessed with me, I probably would have fallen for her myself. Yeah. Her love wasn't normal. It was a terrifying level of obsession and possessiveness. She collected everything that had anything to do with me. And every girl who got too close to me suddenly became her target. Threatened, intimidated, scared away. Eventually nobody at school dared to get close to me anymore. I was completely isolated. Naturally, I blamed every bit of it on her. One day I'd finally had enough. But instead of backing off, she became even more unhinged. So, I did the only thing I could think of. I left the country to study abroad and escape her. That escape lasted 7 whole years. As the plane slowly touched down back home, I stared out the window at the familiar skyline I'd almost forgotten. A flood of memories hit me all at once. I honestly couldn't believe 7 years had gone by. 7 years. Do you have any idea what I've been through during those 7 years? I survived on the blandest food imaginable. 7 years of that stuff. Absolute torture. I even tried learning how to cook for myself. Let's just say my cooking skills were a complete disaster. So the moment I got home, I made one sacred promise to myself. Barbecue, hot pot, ice cold beer. I was coming for all of it. Just thinking about it had me practically drooling. After all, I'd been gone for 7 years. Surely my Yandere childhood friend had forgotten about me by now. Maybe this time I should stay for good. Yeah, no more running away. Home really is the best place in the world. After leaving the airport, I called a ride and waited by the roadside. Not even a minute later, a black SUV pulled up right in front of me. Dang, that was insanely fast. Have rideshare drivers gotten this cracked while I was gone? Just as I was wondering what was going on, the passenger door slowly swung open. 5 massive guys in black suits stepped out one after another. My brain immediately screamed, asterisk asterisk nope, asterisk asterisk. I instinctively took a step backward. Then I forced an awkward smile and greeted them. One look at these dudes, and I knew they weren't friendly neighborhood NPCs. Mr. Fang, please come with us. The leader spoke calmly, almost politely. Who are you people? And how do you even know my name? I didn't wait for an answer. The second I finished talking, I turned around and bolted. Yeah, no shot I was voluntarily getting into that car. All I had to do was reach a crowded street, then I'd be safe. After all, I used to be the sprint champion back in school. Those giant bodyguards were built like raid bosses. There was no way they could outrun me. Or so I thought. I was already celebrating in my head. Enjoy the view of my dust, boys. Yeah, GG. Easy, easy. That hurts, seriously. I was slammed face first onto the pavement. My arms were pinned behind my back so hard I couldn't even move. My face had an intimate meeting with the concrete. And trust me, the concrete won. One of the bodyguards looked down at me like he'd already completed the mission. Put the hood back on him. The next thing I knew, everything went pitch black. Then they grabbed both of my arms again and tossed me into the SUV. Come on, guys. What exactly do you want with me? If this is about money, just let me go, and I'll personally take you to the bank. We can work something out. I'll pay whatever you want. I kept talking the entire ride, trying every trick I could think of. Not a single person answered me. The silence was so creepy that I started wondering if these guys were actual robots. Just when I was getting sleepy enough to drift off, the driver slammed on the brakes without any warning. Thank goodness I was wearing a seatbelt, or it would have been launched straight into the windshield. A moment later, the doors opened again. Those guys grabbed me by both arms and started carrying me like luggage. Guys, seriously, I still have perfectly good legs. I can walk by myself. Seriously, what kind of people were these? Not one of them said a single word the entire time. Still, I figured I was about to meet the mastermind behind this whole mess. The only question was, who could it possibly be? I replayed every mistake I'd ever made, trying to remember who I might have offended. Strangely enough, I was actually getting a little curious. What kind of final boss was waiting for me? Then the room fell silent until the sharp click of high heels echoed across the floor. A woman. Right, they'd mentioned earlier that it was their young lady who wanted to see me. Who could she be? No way. It couldn't possibly be asterisk asterisk or asterisk asterisk, could it? My heartbeat instantly went into overdrive. No chance. After all these years. She had to have forgotten about me by now, right? Then, a familiar perfume drifted into the air. I knew that scent. A second later, the hood was pulled off my head. My eyes instinctively squeezed shut. Going from complete darkness to bright light hit me like a flashbang. Everything looked blurry. I kept my eyes closed for another moment. Then, after adjusting, I slowly opened them again. The first thing I saw was a pair of long, flawless legs. My gaze slowly moved upward, and I froze the instant I saw her face. She was breathtakingly beautiful, like a gorgeous rose covered in deadly poison. Beautiful. And absolutely lethal. My entire body locked up. It felt like every drop of blood in my veins had frozen. Put the hood back on, please. I yelled while desperately lowering my head. Nope, I definitely opened my eyes the wrong way. There's no way it's actually her. Haha, I have to be dreaming. Yeah, this is definitely a dream. A ridiculously realistic nightmare. She slowly leaned closer. Her fingers gently grabbed my chin, forcing me to look straight into her eyes. You ran away for 7 years. And now you've finally decided to come home. Well, decided is a strong word. Actually, I just remembered I still have an unfinished research project overseas. So how about you let me finish that first, and then we can talk. I asked as carefully as I possibly could. This time, don't even think about running away. I built an entire castle just for you. Her fingertips slowly traced across my cheek. The icy touch sent chills down my spine. I'm sure you're going to love it. Only then did I finally look around the room. It looked like I was inside an enormous private estate. The room itself was spacious and luxurious. Everything was decorated with elegant classical European style. Every detail screamed old money luxury. Through the windows, I could see a perfectly maintained garden stretching into the distance. There was even a beautiful fountain in the center. But what caught my attention wasn't the scenery, it was the surveillance cameras everywhere. Do you realize this is illegal, don't you? Let me leave now. And we can still settle this peacefully. Let you leave. She actually laughed, as if I'd just told the funniest joke in history. She casually dismissed all of the bodyguards. Then she gracefully sat down across from me. Every movement was calm and elegant. You disappeared from my life for 7 years. Why would I ever let you leave me again? So you still don't understand why I was willing to leave the country just to escape you. That was the only reason I ever studied abroad in the first place. I don't need to understand. Because this time, you aren't escaping. She smiled softly. But behind that beautiful smile, her eyes were completely insane. And just like that, I became a prisoner. Locked inside her luxurious mansion under the guise of being cared for. The estate itself was absolutely massive. The main mansion had 3 floors. My room was the last one on the east side of the 2nd floor. A beautiful room. Cleaned daily by servants who brought me every meal. None of them ever started a conversation with me. It was like they were forbidden to. Outside, armed bodyguards patrolled the grounds around the clock. Their eyes were razor sharp. Every movement was perfectly synchronized. One look was enough to tell they were professionally trained. I felt like an expensive pet locked inside a golden cage. A bird with clipped wings. This wasn't the life I wanted. I had to escape. And once I got out, I'd leave the country again and never come back. The world was huge. There was no way she could find me a second time. As night slowly fell, the entire estate lit up like daylight, while I quietly started planning my escape. She carefully picked up a piece of sea bass and held it to my lips. Come on, this used to be your favorite. I quietly opened my mouth and accepted it. It wasn't because I wanted to. Experience had already taught me that refusing her only made things worse. She smiled. It was breathtaking and somehow terrifying at the same time. Then she climbed onto my lap without the slightest hesitation. One by one, she fed me every dish on the table. My hands are getting tired from feeding you, darling. Now it's your turn to feed me. She leaned comfortably against my chest, looking up at me with innocent puppy eyes. For a moment, I just stared at the beautiful woman resting in my arms. My mind completely froze. I might not love her, but I couldn't deny she was unbelievably beautiful. Practically flawless. Am I pretty? She asked, clearly pleased by my reaction. Then she pointed at the sea bass. I want another bite of that. I reached for a clean pair of chopsticks beside me, planning to serve her properly. But she stopped me. Use the pair you just used. Isn't that a little weird? I already ate with them. I said use those. The warmth instantly disappeared from her eyes. I could feel the muscles in her body slowly tense up. I'd seen that look before. It always meant she was about to lose control. And honestly, I had no idea what she'd do next. So, I quietly picked up the same chopsticks and fed her another piece of fish. She instantly lit up with the happiest smile. Closing her eyes, she rested her head against my chest again. I've dreamed about this day for so long. Fangy. Now you'll finally stay by my side forever. Her voice trembled with excitement. She buried her face against my shoulder, taking a slow breath as if trying to memorize my scent. Miss Liu. I mean Ryan. Why don't you try some of the soup instead? It's really good. Seeing her emotional state getting more unstable, I desperately tried to change the subject. You really do love me, don't you? She slowly lifted her head and stared directly into my eyes. Come on, eat before it gets cold. I answered as gently as I could, then softly patted her head. I served her a bowl of soup and patiently fed her spoonful after spoonful. She obediently stayed on my lap, even while eating. Her eyes never left me for even a second. To anyone else, we probably looked like a couple madly in love. But I knew the truth. I didn't love her. What I felt was fear. After dinner, she followed me into my bedroom. She had changed into a simple black silk nightgown. Its elegant design only made her seem even more graceful. She leaned comfortably against the headboard, then gently patted the empty space beside her. I slowly walked over and quietly lay down beside her. She smiled in satisfaction. A moment later, I felt her softly wrap her arms around me from behind. She held me close, without saying another word. She simply stayed there, quietly embracing me. The next morning, she had already left the estate. She had recently taken over her family's corporation, so countless responsibilities demanded her attention. That meant I suddenly had a lot more free time. Or at least something that looked like freedom. Every day, I wandered around the estate. Oddly enough, no guards followed me directly. They didn't need to. Security cameras covered almost every inch of the property, and the walls were topped with electrified fencing. Security patrols rotated through the grounds every hour. As for the cameras, I started carefully studying their patterns. Eventually, I discovered several blind spots. If I timed everything perfectly, I'd have roughly 30 seconds where nobody could see me. I secretly memorized every single location. Better safe than sorry. Maybe one day, those 30 seconds would save my life. What I didn't expect was that my opportunity would arrive so soon. Drink this water, then get some rest. I picked up the glass and handed it to my Yandere childhood friend. The Yandere CEO's eyes suddenly lit up, and for a split second, I almost felt guilty about what I was about to do. She accepted the glass from me and finished every last drop without hesitation. I wrapped my arms around her on the bed, acting like everything was perfectly normal. My love, your heart is beating so fast. She rested her head against my chest, quietly listening to every heartbeat. Of course it was racing. How could it not, with the woman who had imprisoned me lying right beside me? Tonight was the night I finally reclaimed my freedom. No more cages, no more chains. Heavy rain had been pouring nonstop for days, which meant the security patrols had stopped making their rounds. As for that glass of water she had just finished, I had dissolved half a sleeping pill into it. She wasn't waking up anytime soon. The moment the clock struck midnight, my escape operation would officially begin. Boom. The night was pitch black, while thunder echoed across the sky again and again. My love. I softly called her name one last time. She didn't respond. She remained fast asleep, with a faint, peaceful smile still on her face. After making absolutely sure she wouldn't wake, I quietly got dressed and slipped out of the bedroom. The dark hallway was completely silent. Moving on tiptoe, I reached the kitchen, opened the ventilation duct above, and crawled inside. This ventilation shaft let me bypass every security camera. It led directly toward the edge of the estate. The passage behind it was cramped and dark, filled with the stale smell of dust. I crawled forward as carefully as I could, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. 20 minutes later, I finally reached the end. I pushed open the cover and quietly dropped to the ground. Everything was going exactly according to plan. I'd rehearsed this escape in my head countless times. Every single step. I'd secretly scouted every corner of this place over and over. Now came the final obstacle. I looked toward the outer wall. A towering white wall stood there, wrapped in electrified fencing. But one small section of that fence had been damaged during the recent thunderstorms. The power had never been restored, because the rain never stopped. The repairs had been delayed. I only knew this because I'd overheard the staff talking in the kitchen 2 days earlier. Holding a small flashlight between my teeth, I dismantled part of a grape trellis, built a makeshift ladder, and lifted the damaged wire aside. Then I tossed it over the wall. I sat on top of the wall for a few seconds to catch my breath. After finding a safe landing spot, I jumped. A 4-meter drop wasn't enough to stop me. The moment I cleared the estate, I sprinted with everything I had, gasping for air. A flash of lightning ripped across the night sky. The entire world lit up for an instant. I couldn't help looking back. The massive estate stood silently beneath the pouring rain, like a sleeping monster waiting to devour me again. Its enormous shadow still seemed to stretch over me. Compared to it, I felt like nothing more than a tiny insect. The next morning, the Yandere CEO reached out as usual, expecting to pull me into her arms. Still half asleep, she searched the bed beside her. But this time, her hand grabbed nothing but empty sheets. Every trace of sleep instantly vanished from her eyes. Then a guard rushed in with a report. The fence behind the estate has been cut open. Her expression instantly froze into icy fury. At that moment, she knew without a doubt that I'd escaped. "DeLong, I need you to handle something for me." She picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. "Find him and bring him back." While her people launched a citywide search, I'd already changed my appearance completely. I was calmly eating breakfast at a crowded fruit street. I took a bite of a soup dumpling, then followed it with a sip of black rice porridge. Man, I'd miss this so much. It tasted exactly the same. I couldn't stop smiling. Scrolling through short videos while finishing my breakfast, it honestly felt like I'd gone back to my carefree high school days. Back when I had no worries. After eating, I hailed a ride to the high-speed railway station. Step 1 was simple: leave this city before anyone found me. I tightened my grip on my ticket. I knew the Yandere CEO could track me down at any moment if I stayed. Flying wasn't an option. Airport security made it way too easy to get caught. A regular train was far too slow. So after thinking it through, the high-speed rail was the perfect play. The second I got out of this city, I planned to leave the country. I wasn't giving that obsessive woman even a single second to react. The taxi pulled away, but only a few minutes later, it came to a complete stop. "What's going on?" I asked, looking out the window. The entire road ahead was packed with cars. "Looks like there's been an accident." "We're not moving anytime soon," the driver sighed. He looked just as frustrated as I was. I checked the time on my phone. It was already 11:30. If I stayed here, I'd miss my train. "Just drop me off here, driver. I'm in a hurry." After paying the fare, I jumped out. Looking ahead, I couldn't even see the end of the traffic jam. This backup was absolutely insane. Thankfully, the station wasn't that far away. A short walk would get me there. Everything was going smoothly again. I couldn't help smiling. I was actually about to board that train. The Yandere CEO was probably raging like an NPC who just lost the final boss fight. Just imagining her reaction felt amazing. Following my navigation app, I turned the next corner. Then I suddenly slammed into something solid. I looked up and found a giant man standing directly in front of me. "Sorry," I said automatically. I tried to walk around him. He didn't say a word. He simply stood there. And the instant we brushed past each other, something suddenly felt wrong. Before I could even figure it out, my vision went completely black. Is this the guy? Yeah, that's him. Damn it, I got kidnapped again. That crazy woman had secretly installed a tracking device inside my phone. I hadn't even been free for a full day before they dragged me right back. When I returned to this state, the Yandere CEO was strangely calm. She didn't yell. She didn't even ask why I ran. Instead, surveillance cameras appeared in every corner of the mansion. The patrols doubled their security rounds. I was practically locked inside my bedroom. The moment I stepped outside, a maid followed me everywhere. She never spoke. Her only job was watching me. I understood exactly why everything had changed. My escape shattered every fantasy she'd built. She finally realized that deep down, every smile I'd shown her had been nothing but an act to escape. She was furious. Or maybe she was simply heartbroken. Instead of trying to win my heart, she decided to own me instead. She locked me inside that luxurious prison for good. 1 week later, She finally came into my room again. She looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, and even expensive makeup couldn't completely hide them. So, you really want to leave me? She asked in a terrifyingly calm voice. I just want my freedom. Freedom, she laughed. There was bitterness hiding inside that laugh. Freedom always has a price. Do you even know what waits outside? A world ruled by money and power. A place full of betrayal and manipulation. You're too innocent. I'm the only one who can protect you. I let out a cold laugh. Protect me. You locked me up like an animal in a cage. My life is my own. You have no right to decide it for me. Her expression changed. The calm disappeared, replaced by anger. I've given you the very best. The most comfortable home imaginable. Every book and every resource you've ever wanted. I can give you absolutely anything. Anything. Except permission to leave. What I want is the right to choose. She stepped closer. Her eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. You choose to become just another ordinary person struggling every day to survive. Even if that choice is to leave me. Her question caught me completely off guard. But a second later, my anger exploded even harder. That's right. Whatever happens to my future is my decision. You'll never be able to keep me here forever. There's only one way you can make me stay. My death. That was the moment I tore away every last disguise. There was no pretending anymore. Every cruel word I'd held back. I threw straight at her without mercy. She froze in place. For a long time. She couldn't say a single word. I only wanted you to stay. I can give you everything you've ever wanted. She slowly reached out, trying to touch my face. I instinctively stepped backward. Her hand stopped in midair, then slowly fell back to her side. One day you'll understand. She turned around and quietly left the room, leaving me standing there, completely alone inside my luxurious prison. From that day forward, I spent most of my time staring through the sealed window. It felt like my soul had disappeared. I barely spoke anymore. Until one night, I stood in front of the bathroom sink. The mirror had long since been removed, leaving only smooth white tiles behind. That's when I finally understood what she feared most. She was terrified that I'd hurt myself. Terrified of losing me forever. Then, a terrifying thought began growing inside my mind. There was still one thing that nobody could take away from me: the choice to end my own life. Once that thought appeared, it wrapped around my mind like creeping vines. Soon it consumed everything. I quietly began looking for an opportunity. No security was ever perfect. Eventually, I discovered one thing she'd overlooked. I dismantled the power cord from my bedside lamp. until I exposed the bare metal wires. After she left, I quietly finished the meal the maid brought me. Once she cleaned everything up, I began my plan. The next inspection wouldn't happen for another 30 minutes. That half hour was the only window I'd ever get. I took one deep breath. Then I looked out the window one final time. The sky was gray, cold and lifeless. Without another hesitation, I flipped the switch. Electricity surged violently through my body. Unbearable pain exploded through every nerve. Then everything went dark. Finally, I thought it was over. When I opened my eyes again, I smelled disinfectant. A hospital. My vision was blurry. All I could see was a white ceiling. And for bag hanging above me. I slowly turned my head. Pain immediately shot through my body. Then I saw the Yandere CEO. She was sitting beside my bed. Her eyes were swollen. Her face was frighteningly pale. The instant she saw me wake up, she rushed toward me. Her trembling hands gently cupped my face. "You're awake, thank God." Hot tears landed on my cheeks. Her voice was completely broken as she cried. "Why would you do this? Do you really hate me that much?" I tried to answer, but my throat burned. No sound came out. She realized immediately. Carefully, she lifted a cup and helped me drink some water. "Don't try to speak. The doctor said your vocal cords were injured. They'll need time to recover." Over the next several days, she barely left my side. She personally helped me drink water, fed me every meal, and cleaned my body. She stayed beside me through every endless night. The obsessive fire that once filled her eyes was gone. In its place remained only overwhelming fear and heartbreaking sorrow. A week later, I was finally strong enough to sit up on my own. My voice had started to recover as well. "Let me go," I whispered through my damaged throat. The Yandere CEO stayed silent for a long time. Then, to my complete shock, she nodded. "Okay." I honestly thought I'd misheard her. "What did you just say?" I said okay. She stood up with her back facing me. "If leaving is truly what you want, I won't stop you anymore. Once you've fully recovered, you'll be free to leave." Her voice sounded calm, but I could see her shoulders trembling. I had no idea why she'd suddenly changed her mind, but I wasn't about to waste the opportunity. Another 2 weeks passed. The doctors officially discharged me from the hospital. She brought me back to the estate, but not to the room where I'd been imprisoned. Instead, I was given an ordinary guest room. The doors and windows were unlocked. "You can leave whenever you want, but I hope you'll stay a few more days. I have something important to tell you." "What is it?" I asked. She slowly placed a hand over her abdomen. In that instant, I realized what she meant. "I'm pregnant." My mind went completely blank. That's impossible. The week before you escaped. We had dinner together. You got drunk. Don't you remember? I searched my memory. There really had been one night. She brought out a bottle of red wine, saying it was to celebrate. To keep up my fake act, I drank far more than I normally would. Everything after that was a blur. I only remembered waking up with a splitting headache. So this child is mine. She met my eyes without hesitation. I know you don't believe me. And I know you probably don't want this child. But at least wait until everything is confirmed. I've already arranged a doctor. They can examine me tomorrow. I agreed. Not because I trusted her, but because I needed the truth. If she really was pregnant, and the baby was truly mine, then what was I supposed to do? The next day, the doctor arrived. She was a middle-aged woman who immediately inspired confidence. After the examination, she confirmed the pregnancy. The pregnancy was real. About 8 weeks along. But what shocked me even more was what the doctor privately told me afterward. Based on her medical history, this pregnancy was considered extraordinarily unlikely. From a medical standpoint, it was close to a miracle. Given her condition, if this pregnancy is lost, she may never be able to become pregnant again. The doctor's expression remained serious. I understand your complicated situation. But as a physician, I have a responsibility to tell you these medical facts. That night, I couldn't sleep. My thoughts were a complete mess. Part of me still desperately wanted my freedom. But another part felt a responsibility I'd never experienced before. This child had done nothing wrong. That realization weighed heavily on my heart. For the first time, I felt I couldn't simply walk away. A few days later, I finally made my decision. I'll stay until the baby is born. After that, we'll decide what comes next. Her eyes lit up with hope. Before that hope quickly faded. So, only because of the baby, for now, yes. She quietly nodded, accepting my answer. After deciding to stay, something inside me slowly began to change. I was no longer just a prisoner, I was someone preparing to become a father. Even the Yandere CEO started to change. She stopped trying to control every little thing I did. The restrictions inside the mansion slowly disappeared. I could finally walk around the garden whenever I wanted. I was free to spend time reading in the library. I could even ask to leave the estate, as long as someone accompanied me. Little by little, we started acting like a normal couple preparing to become parents. Together, we picked out baby supplies. We even debated baby names and attended prenatal classes side by side. The pregnancy hit her hard, and she vomited constantly. She was dizzy almost every day, yet never complained once. Then one night, a strange noise from the next room woke me up. I walked over to check. She was sitting upright on the bed. Her face was pale. Cold sweat covered her forehead. "What's wrong? Your stomach." "My old condition." She forced a weak smile. I poured her a glass of warm water. Then I found the medicine the doctor had prescribed. After she finished taking it, I stayed by the bedside, unsure whether I should leave or remain there. "Could you stay and talk with me?" she asked softly. "Anything is fine." Her tired eyes rested on me, filled with quiet longing. I wanted to refuse, but the words never came out. Instead, I pulled over a chair and sat beside her bed. I started telling her about my life in Germany, about the funny things I saw during my first days wandering the streets there, about secretly eating snacks during class. Everything I'd been holding inside since returning home finally came pouring out. Only then did I realize. Back in my dorm, I laughed almost every single day. But after coming here, I hadn't truly smiled even once. She listened quietly. Her expression gradually softened. "I'm sorry," the Yandere CEO suddenly said. "I was wrong from the very beginning. You were never my possession. You've always been free. But I foolishly tried to chain you to my side. And all I did was push you farther away." I fell silent. Never in my life did I imagine she would sincerely apologize to me. Over the past few days, I realized her change wasn't an act. It came from the bottom of her heart. The only problem was that it had come a little too late. I stood by the window. A few lonely stars flickered across the dark sky. Maybe I could try opening my heart again, even if the risk was enormous. That conversation became the turning point of our relationship. I no longer saw her as nothing more than my kidnapper. I finally saw someone who carried both deep love and deep scars. As time passed, our interactions became more natural. We often walked through the garden together, talking about architecture and design. Eventually, we even designed the baby's room together. "There should be a floor-to-ceiling window here." She pointed at the blueprint. "So our child can see the garden and watch the seasons change." "This structure isn't strong enough." I pointed at her design. "But it looks so much better," she insisted. "We can reinforce the strength with better materials." In the end, we found a compromise. A design that balanced beauty and practicality. When it was finished, we looked at each other and smiled. It was a quiet understanding between us. As her pregnancy progressed, I noticed myself caring about her more and more. I started worrying about her health. I reminded her to get enough rest and prepared nutritious meals for her. At first, I did those things out of responsibility. But eventually, they became second nature. One afternoon, we were drinking tea in the garden. She suddenly asked, Do you know what my favorite moment is? When, right now, she gently stroked her pregnant belly. And this little life, too. Things still aren't perfect. But this is the most peaceful moment I've ever had. I watched the sunlight fall across her profile. Then it suddenly hit me. The woman who had once imprisoned me now looked unbelievably gentle. Honestly, I feel the same. She slowly turned to look at me. Her eyes shimmered with tears. That night, I had a strange dream. In that dream, I had never gone abroad. Instead, we attended the same university together. We weren't bound by obsession anymore. We were simply lovers. Hand in hand, we walked beneath golden autumn trees, talking about our future. A gentle breeze carried a fallen leaf. Without thinking, I reached over and brushed it from her hair. When I woke up, I felt an unexpected emptiness. Then came confusion. Had my heart already begun accepting her? Could I actually fall in love with the woman who once held me captive? Feelings never follow the script you expect. As time passed, I realized my eyes kept searching for her. Longer and longer each day. On lonely nights, her face would appear in my thoughts without warning. At 6 months, we went in for another prenatal checkup. The doctor told us our baby was perfectly healthy. She threw her arms around me, barely holding back tears. For the first time in my life, I felt overwhelming joy. I was about to become a father. I want to give our child a name. Fang Chen. Chen, as in success and achievement. It symbolizes light and hope. I nodded in agreement. Then I wrapped my arms around her small frame. Fang Chen was born on a beautiful sunny morning. The delivery went smoothly. When the nurse placed that tiny little life into her arms, we both burst into tears. She was so tiny, so perfect. The moment I held my daughter, I experienced a love unlike anything before. Not just a father's love, but something even deeper. A responsibility toward this new life. Gratitude toward her. And a promise to protect our unusual little family. She's adorable, she whispered softly, her eyes overflowing with tears. She really is. During her recovery, I took responsibility for caring for both of them, mother and daughter. I learned how to change diapers, feed the baby and burp her. At first, I was completely hopeless. But I slowly got the hang of it. One evening, our baby wouldn't stop crying. Nothing I tried worked. She quietly got out of bed and gently took the baby from me. She softly hummed a soothing lullaby. Almost like magic, the crying stopped. Our daughter slowly fell asleep. "Where did you learn that song?" I asked in surprise. It had been my favorite lullaby when I was a child. She looked up and smiled at me without answering my question directly. Every mother has her own little magic. I'm just happy our daughter loves that song too. I looked at the two of them, and everything inside me finally became clear. Yes, I had fallen in love with her. Not because of responsibility, not because of habit, but because I truly loved her. I loved both her strength and her vulnerability, her brilliance and her determination, even the flawed, almost crazy parts of her. "Are you Yan?" I whispered. "I love you." She froze, and tears streamed down her face. "What did you just say?" "I love you," I repeated, this time without the slightest hesitation. My voice had never sounded more certain. Our story didn't begin in the best way, but I hope we can build a better future together. 1 year later, we finally held our wedding at this estate. The place I had once desperately tried to escape was now beautifully decorated. Everywhere, the once intimidating black iron gates were covered with ribbons and colorful balloons. Even the barbed fencing that crowned the walls had long since been removed. Sunlight slowly emerged, breaking through the morning mist. Its warm glow gently illuminated her face. I took her hand and we walked together down the long red carpet. When the officiant asked for our vows, our eyes met in perfect silence. We smiled at each other, and together, we answered with the same 3 words.